The next finishing technique that I want to show you is specifically for pies that have a double crust. So there's a crust on the bottom, there's something that goes inside, and then there's a top crust that covers the whole top of the pie. This particular one is an apple pie. So I have my apple filling, I have it dotted with butter, and off camera I have already rolled out, you need to do this before you start, I've rolled out the second crust pretty large because it needs to cover the whole bottom pie and filling. So the first thing that you need to do is we're going to take a little bit of egg wash, which is an egg mixed with any liquid of your choosing, heavy cream, half and half, milk, water, whatever. And we're just going to brush the sides. It kind of acts like glue to help adhere the top crust to the bottom crust. Okay, just a little light brushing there. And now we are going to trim our dough. And honestly, I probably should have done this before the egg wash, but here's what I want to point out. We are going to be tucking the top crust under the bottom crust. So we need to have a little bit of overhang, but most of the overhang is going to come from our top crust. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. This little piece right here is about perfect. These places where it looks short, it's going to be okay. But these longer places, I'm going to just kind of trim off generously. I'm feeling under here, and you can see where the lip of the pie plate, there's probably like, see where my fingernail mark is? There's like that much, maybe half an inch. Don't get don't get out a ruler or anything, but all I'm telling you is we need a little bit of overhang so that we have something to work with when it's time to tuck the top crust under the bottom crust. So this would have a little bit more overhang than like the dough that I just finished with the fork, where that one was very close in. Okay, this doesn't look particularly pretty or perfect, but that's okay. That's the beauty of a double crust pie, is we're gonna make it look great by putting another crust right on top. So now I'm going to carefully take my top crust and just lay it right on top. Try to get it kind of centered. And remember, whatever you do, do not stretch the pie dough. That's a no-no. If anything, you want to kind of encourage it to slouch in on itself a bit. So once you have it positioned, you can see we've got more than we need. So I'm going to trim, excuse me, I'm going to trim a generous overhang. So here is my top crust, my bottom crust is here, and the pie plate is here. So you can see how this one is a little bit even bigger than the one underneath. And what we're gonna end up doing is taking this top one, folding it over and pinching all that together. But first we need to trim this. So you just kind of have to use your hand as a guide to kind of feel underneath there and just try to keep it uniform the whole way around. Keep in mind, you can always trim more, you can always be generous with your tuck, but once you cut the dough, you can't add it back. So take that for what it's worth. So just keep going, kind of in a big circle. Also, side note, these little dough pieces that are extra make for a wonderful activity for your child. They can pat them out, make little, I don't know. I used to let my girls roll them out, cut them out, and dust them with butter and cinnamon sugar, and then they would bake their little pie pieces in the oven. Okay, so here we have our top crust, our bottom crust, and our pie plate. So the idea is we're gonna tuck the top crust over and under the bottom crust. So it's not tucking and placing on top, it's actually enveloping that bottom crust with the top crust. Does that make sense? So you're wanting to go all the way over like that. But the problem here visually is I'm gonna do it, you can't really see it, but that's the action. So go all the way around the pie plate, tucking the top crust underneath the bottom crust. Just keep going, and you really just have to use your sense of touch. And there will be some places where it feels thicker and more obvious, and some places where you might have had a little scant place of the bottom crust, but that's okay. Just fold it like it's there anyway and make the whole thing kind of look as uniform as possible. Like right here, I can feel this is a really thick piece of crust, like there's a lot, and over here there was a place where it felt, this one, it feels really thin. That's okay, it's gonna be okay. Again, make sure it's kind of within the confines of the pie dish before you start finishing it. And this is the basic idea. Now, at this point, I'm going to pinch, I'm gonna show you how I kind of do this pinching action on the pie crust. But you could use the fork again if you want. You can totally do that. I'm gonna show you a different technique where I take my index finger and my thumb and my middle finger, and I take the pie dough in between, and I'm gonna pinch to create a little divot. And the idea is you want to seal the two crusts together. So however you choose to do that, whether with a fork, whether with your fingers, there are a lot of different like pinching techniques. It doesn't matter to me, whatever you want to do. Just do the same thing all the way around, being conscious of the fact that we are trying to kind of like squeeze together two pieces of dough so that the filling doesn't come spurting out the side. So we're sealing the filling inside the two pie crusts. And the thing I love about this technique is, I mean, I'm literally just pinching it together, but it looks really beautiful and uniform, and it's not difficult. Okay, so there is our finished detail. We have two more steps. The first step is, because we have sealed this so tightly, and because there is fruit in there that's going to give off steam, we need to give that steam somewhere to go so that the pie doesn't explode. So we're going to cut 3 or 4 little slits in the top. You can get creative with this if you want to. You could, you know, cut out shapes or whatever, but basically you just need a couple of steam holes. And then we're gonna finish this. We're gonna brush the whole thing with egg wash, which will help it turn this beautiful golden photographable color. It's just beautiful. It would be fine if you didn't, but it just looks more amazing when you brush it with the egg wash. Just go everywhere. And then, because I just love the way sugar looks on top of a pie, I'm gonna sprinkle it with some chunky sugar. You could also sprinkle it with, you could use regular granulated sugar, or you could use sugar in the raw, sometimes called demadura, I never know how to pronounce that. Anyway, any kind of sugar that you wanna sprinkle on top would be great. So there's my egg wash. And now I have, this is the chunky sugar. It's just clear. Kind of sugar in the raw looks similar to this. It kind of has more of an amber color, or you could just use regular granulated sugar, but it just gives it a nice crunchy top, a little sparkle, something extra. Totally optional. But I would say the egg wash is not optional. I think you're really gonna wanna have that. It makes all the difference visually. And if you've gone to the trouble to make this beautiful apple pie, we want it to look stunning. Okay, so this one is ready to go in the oven as well.